Hello, you'll have seen me working on Beta or Betamax video recorders quite a lot. I quite enjoy working on Betamax equipment.
Somebody's dropped this in.
Except maybe the kit that goes with this. This is a tuner timer that's used with the SL-F1 portable video recorder. And that has a bit of a failing, that it's got flexi cables between the internal PCBs, and as soon as you take it apart to work on it, the cables break up, make it impossible to repair. They're also often supplied with great big tube cameras, which I really can't make any use of at all.
So this is the last thing you want to see then.
Oh, so a whole heap of Beta portable equipment. Let's have a look at this then. So the first item here is the tuner timer. It's missing a cover over here. Looks a little rusty too, so it may have been stored in a garage or similar. Going around the back, we have, well, there's a PCM switch, which I see had been left in the PCM position. That was a mistake by somebody, because I don't believe they had the PCM digital audio decoder. That would be your normal operation, and the dropout compensator would work to give you a reasonably good picture, even if your tape has dropouts. All pretty much video recorders have that feature. But in the PCM position, it disables a dropout compensator so that any dropouts are handled by the digital electronics inside the PCM digital audio decoder. So that's a useful feature, but it was used incorrectly. So we've got audio and video in and out, a multi-way connector that goes into the back of the F1 portable, and a multi-out connector. We'll have to look up what that does. I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so that's the tuner timer part. Let's see what's in this great big bag. Video accessory system bag, LC370. We have a portable, F1 portable, which looks to be in fairly sorry state because the door is sort of hanging off. That's not a good sign. And it's also missing a drop-down panel off that. And then the HVC-4000P camera. It's camera plug on the end, which would fit in any Beta video recorder which has a camera socket. Not all do, and that's also compatible with Sanyo ones. I believe there was an adapter available to allow you to plug this also into VHS based equipment. So the signals were similar, but the connector was different. And this does include a monochrome viewfinder, a bit like actually professional equipment did. So you can do peaking signal there to make so you can see the brightness effectively. So that's all well and good, and we will get to play with this later, but can we get the machine working? That's our top priority. Right, there's a tape in this machine. I think I'll take this lid off properly. That's not supposed to be off that. Here's the great big battery, and you could get separate chargers for these, so you could charge them off camera. I dare say that's not in working order. Okay, let's plug all this in and see what we get. Okay, power it up and see if anything happens. Okay, we have a clock on. This does not appear to be coming out of standby. So, clock visible there, but when I press the on standby button, nothing's happening here. So the problems could be with the tuner timer as much as with the portable. Well, I have a separate power supply for the portable, so we could try one of those if I don't have another tuner timer kicking about somewhere. Let's see what I can find. Okay, I found this downstairs. It's a charger and power supply for this. We'll disconnect the multi-way connector. Cabinet work's all coming off here, which is a bad sign indeed. Plug in this power cable into the portable. Right, that's gone into standby correctly, or on standby. So now this should be powered up. Displays come on. That's a good sign. Let's just try fast forward. Promising. Stop. Rewind. A little slow maybe, but yeah, that's working. Play. And wait a few seconds, see if it keeps playing. So far so good actually. Let's try eject. Seems okay. And it should lace up. Alright. So our problems could be the tuner timer. Now the trouble is, when you've got this powered up in this fashion, you don't have an easy way to get to the power connector. And all these screws are missing, which is definitely implying that somebody's had this apart. So there might well be more problems. It's not a good way, is it? But we really need to connect this to something. There is a modulator output here. Not my favourite way to connect it up, but since I don't have that connector to hand, I think I might just do that. I might see if I can connect up the modulator output and just to the TV and see if we get anything. This will of course involve tuning the TV in to the modulator output, which is a proper pain. We'll switch our test signal on, make it easier to find. Okay, the test signal doesn't seem to be working, but I am getting a very poor output from the tape, and I can tell it is the tape. One, there are no analog transmissions, and two, look. But it looks like just sort of modulator trouble really, so I really need to get the AV outputs going. Actually the machine looks like it's working quite well underneath all that noise. Ah, now I have a picture, so maybe I was just on a sideband, I wasn't on the proper image. Okay, I've stored that. And try ×2 picture. Not too bad. Getting a bit of streaking as though we may have worn heads, but that could be on the recording. So really I need a known good tape. Okay, I found a bit of Iron Maiden, not actually my sort of thing, but let's give it a whirl. And try the tracking from one extreme to the other. Looks pretty good. I wouldn't say there were worn heads on that. And ×2 is playing with, oh, there's no noise bar creeping in, but I can mostly creep it out. That's not too shabby at all, is it? And the more I use it, the happier it seems to be. Okay, I'll reassemble this. I might need to find some screws to put it together nicely, and then we can start looking at the tuner timer problem. Or I may have a spare one somewhere. This door, the plastic pins seem to have been snapped off there. Do you know, I reckon the reason this has been hacked up is that someone was just trying to get the tape out when the power supply failed. Right, I'll glue that into position, I think. That'll be good, and then refit the top. And then find some screws that are missing at the back. Okay, that's glued in place. Let's put this back in position. These screws seem a bit chewed up, and the hatch doesn't seem to be closing quite as cleanly as it should. But let's just see that it works properly. It's okay, but its alignment's generally not that great. That needs gluing down as well. Right, I had a rummage in my storeroom and I found a front panel. That's nice. And I found another tuner timer, albeit this also is missing its front panel. But let's see if this will power up. Okay, switch it on, clock on. Also, it's responding exactly the same way. I can't get it to come out of standby. Coincidence? So either they have the same fault, or it's not coming out of standby due to a fault in here. But since it works on this power supply, it seems unlikely, I'd have said, that this machine is at fault, though it's not impossible. That's powering up fine on this adapter. So this adapter comes out of standby just fine, but it uses a different connector. So it could be there's a signal fault within the multi-way connector on the back of this that's preventing it from coming out of standby on the tuner timer. Right, going to another storage area, I found another F1 portable, and it says to be tested. So I'll start by briefly testing it on this power supply, which we know works, and if that works, we'll try it on one of the tuner timers, and that'll isolate where the fault is. Maybe. Cosmetically, this one's in much better shape. Alright, we haven't checked it for picture and what have you, but from the point of view of powering up, that's fine. So now let's try powering that from one of the tuner timers. I'm not sure what would happen. You know what? It's designed to prevent you from accidentally plugging both in at the same time. This plug here would foul the power plug from here. So that's obviously designed to prevent you from accidentally having both plugged in at the same time. Okay, I'm on this tuner timer, which is the one that came at my storeroom, rather than the one that came with the other machine. So let's try powering that up. So does it come out of standby now? No, still not. So the problem lies in both tuner timers. Both have the same fault. Or I'm doing something wrong, I don't know what I'm doing. And I've got it in some weird mode and it won't come out of said weird mode. Don't see that myself. So I think both tuner timers are defective. Well, since we're here, let's test this machine as well. Again, I'll have to use just the aerial connection for a moment. And I may have to tune it in. I think it may already be roughly tuned in. Let's try a bit of Iron Maiden. We may be off tune. That looks like either we've got a massive tracking error or a head clog. Or a head failure. I'll just leave it for a moment in case it cleans itself up. I think it might. A bit of picture search might help. Okay, the heads are cleaning up on that one. Still maybe a little less than perfect, but it's heading in the right direction. More or less there. So both of these F1 portable machines seem to be in working order, but we just need to sort out a tuner timer if we can. Is there anything I could have missed here? Am I being silly and not testing it properly? Let's connect it up again to one of the video recorders. And I'm going to put the battery in. The battery probably is pretty terrible, but let's see if the charge light will come on. So, where's the battery? Okay, so switch on the tuner timer. Clock comes on. This on-off button here, by the way, is on. So if I press the charge button, it instantly goes out. But it does light up when I press the button. Press timer, nothing. On, nothing. Also, the clock set does not appear to be working. Well, I've had another rummage to see if I can find another tuner timer, and I didn't find one. But I did find something useful. Another F1 portable, but perhaps more importantly, this one has the I/O cable. Well, it's video only, so we'd have to take audio output from the earphone. But that should be good enough for us to test whether we have a good video signal on the output. And I see that this little bit of trim here is bending up in the same way as it did on the machine that came in today. So let's test this machine as well, and then we can also test this cable. So we have our third machine here, which is connected to the power supply, and the video out is connected to the monitor. Right, bit more Iron Maiden. Right, that one works well. I think I had tested this one previously. Nice, very nice. But no sound on this particular connection. But now we can connect that video connector to the other two machines. This is the one where the heads had to clean themselves up a bit. It's starting to look like the portables themselves are pretty reliable. And this is the one that came in the big silver carry case, which is cosmetically a bit bashed up. They all work quite well. It needs a bit of a clean. Right, so one thing I promised you is that we're going to try the camera. So let's plug a camera into one of these. We'll do so on a tape that you can record onto. The front of the glass here is quite foggy. It probably needs to be taken off and cleaned. Is that something that can be done? I'm not sure if this is a filter or lens that somebody has added, or if it's a factory one. But it's so foggy that that's certainly going to impair the image. Okay, well let's just roll with that for a minute. Start by playing a tape on here and see if we get anything in the viewfinder. I may need to switch this on. How do we switch this on? So far it seems to be completely dead. Have I got it connected properly? So the way this connects is you simply push it in and it goes click, and then to remove it you pull the collar. Nice design. So that should have been plugged in properly, but it was doing nothing. The pins appear to be all in good order. Try a little switch cleaner on it. Try again. We could also try a different machine. I'll try putting it into record mode. Does that wake up the camera at all? Absolutely nothing. From what I can see, the camera section is completely dead. It seems to have a very low serial number. The 2000 will be where it's made, I think, and the 54 is the serial number, so very low number indeed. But that appears to be as dead as a doornail. Okay, that's a fail, I think. We will try one of the other machines on the camera, but I'm sure it won't make a difference. Anything from the camera? No, not a thing. Not even run stop, which I think should at least switch machine on and off. And no playback picture or anything on the screen at all. No, completely dead. So we probably should just junk this. It's no use to man the beast, is it? Let's forget about that one. But what about the tuner timers? We'll have a quick look inside. But I'm not going to do a major repair on this today. Let's just see if anything obvious jumps out and hits us. Even with the service manual, it's not incredibly obvious how to get the power block out. But Let's feel our way along. Get a closer look at that. I think you can see that this is not going to be a very pleasant thing to work on. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible because we do have the service manual, but that is a nasty thing to work on. You have to slide this metal tray out, and it's sort of held on with heatsink compound at the end. So that means a certain amount of dismantling. There we are. There's some heatsink compound between the bottom tray and this heatsink at the end. So that needs to come off in order to be able to slide this metal cover away and then be able to access the bottom of the PCB. So when you press the on button there, it should send a signal to the electronics that's involved in the relay drive to switch on one of these relays. But the likelihood is that the protection circuit's kicked in. Well, that's one possibility anyway, that the protection circuit's kicked in. So the fact that it's not coming on is not likely to actually be there. There's some other problem. Let's just power it up in this condition for a moment and see if I can detect anything. Are the protection circuits fired up, or there's no input to that part of the power supply? Well, that's not going to be a pleasant thing to debug at all. So I'm going to leave it there. I think we're getting towards the point of leaving it a little bit dangerous, and I don't want to work on that kind of PCB today. Let's briefly reassemble this rather than leave it in a pile of bits. Okay, I'd appear to be on a loser with these units, but what they do, they give you 12 volts, well, you can get 12 volts from anywhere, and they give you the connectors. But clearly, as we've seen, there's nothing special about going from here to these connectors. They must be just straight through, because we have a cable that bypassed all this. Where did that go? Okay, we have this cable, right? There's nothing in here, I'm sure. Well, I could have a look, but I don't think there's any electronics in here. There's no amplifiers or anything. So all I really need to do is replicate this plug and take it through to some... Well, all I want is audio and video out. And then we can use the machines. So let's have a quick look in here. There is some electronics. That's a lot more than I was expecting to see. So there's an amplifier in there. It may not be necessary, but there is one. Quite a tricky thing to reassemble. So, though we have connectors marked video out, they may need buffering. Or they may not need it. It may just be that Sony have been a bit overly cautious. So I think we'd need to meter, or need to check the ports on the back of the video recorder here to see, maybe one that's a bit less bashed up than this, to see whether those signals could directly drive the monitor. Now I was thinking, what kind of plug could I use to replicate this? And the nearest I think I can find is one of these IDC connectors, which is probably from a disk drive or something. And it seems to be the same 0.1 inch pitch and the same width as well. It's not as deep, but that may not matter. And of course it's too long, and it doesn't have the notches for orientation. But that might be a good place to start. So perhaps I can shorten this and see if it'll fit in the back of the video recorder. So let's get rid of the tuner timer for a minute. Choose one of the machines which doesn't have the slightly chewed socket and see if this will fit. Yes, I think it will. So I'll shorten this because it's gash anyway, and get it to fit in there, and then we can pick off the signals and see if we can feed the TV with it. And the pinout is given in the service manual, but which is pin 1, etc., I don't know. I might be able to infer it by looking at this, because you can see which pins here are populated, because they have the little metal sockets on them. I don't suppose they're actually numbered on here. That would be too easy. Oh, they are numbered. That's handy. Putting it in the socket here, we see that pin 1 is the top connector closest to the aerial socket. Then it goes over to pin 13 at this end, the power connector end. And at the bottom, 14 is at the aerial and 26 is at the socket. I'll take a note of that. Okay, I've made a connector which will replicate this reasonably well and will fit the socket, though I suspect plugging it in might be easy, getting it out again could be a bit fiddly because I don't have anything to grab hold of. So I might need to solder lots of wires to earth terminals to give me some sort of thing, a grab handle to unplug it with. But really, in the first instance, we just want to see if audio out and video out will drive the TV. So I just need to put some wires on it and see if that'll work and think of a way to unplug it. Okay, I've made my very rough connector up. So it's picking up audio out channel 2 only because, of course, this is mono. This was never extended into stereo. And I've got the ground connectors all on this wire, so I can give that a bit of a tug as well when it gets stuck, which it might well do. And I'm not worrying about audio in and video in. And I'm not using the 12 volt here. I'll provide 12 volt from one of the other supplies initially, and then ultimately I'll hook up a connector for 12 volt into there. You could power it 12 volt from this, but I'm not terribly keen on that idea. So let's see if the plug physically fits okay, and I've not pushed it all the way in yet because I wasn't sure if we'd ever get it out again. Okay, that's fitted. Connect that to the TV on the AV inputs. I think we'll go for the Iron Maiden tape again. Here's hoping for some Iron Maiden. Yes, result. I wasn't sure if we'd get away with an unbuffered version of this, but we did. So all we need to do now is get a generic sort of connector for using any old power supply rather than the Sony one, and we have a solution for running F1 portables without the tuner timer. One thing I need to just check is, can I unplug this cable? It's not going to be that easy. I want to tug mostly on the one that's not got any electrical connections. Ah yes, okay, that works. Right, so we need a DIN plug to fit that. The same type of DIN plug as that. It's a maybe slightly oddly spaced 5-pin DIN. Let's see if I have one. A DIN plug with 3 along the top and 2 there, and the pin out seems to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somewhat weird pin out. But which ones do I actually need? Well, I need, as an absolute minimum, pin 2 and 4 or 5. So I only need those pins. Pin 1 I can do without because that's the charge pin. So, and pin 3 is not connected anyway. So I need as a bare minimum 2 and then 4 or 5, or both preferably. Looking at the notch end here, we've got these 2 pins, 2 and 5, and I've modified a bit of a 3-pin DIN plug, taken out the centre pin normally pin 2 that is, so I've just got the outer 2 pins at the end, and it seems they're too wide and won't fit the DIN plug socket. So I don't think I'm going to get any plug to fit that. This must be some oddball thing. Maybe Sony had this specially commissioned. So we're going to have to provide 12 volts via this connector. I wasn't keen on that because it could go big bang, but I don't seem to have a choice. If you have a short circuit on this, it's going to be a bit cataclysmic, but I just don't have a solution, do I? So Yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. Right, so I have the ground connection here on pin 2, which is common to the ground connections here on the multi-way connector. But the 12 volt supply does not appear to be connected to any of the pins on the multi-way connector. And that's probably because the 12 volt supply from the tuner timer is not considered the same as a 12 volt raw here. So that's a bit unfortunate. It means that I can't just stuff 12 volts in connectors here. There's a risk, if it's not the same 12 volts as this, then there's a risk that I could blow something up. So there's connectors, pins on here, pins 8 and 9, it says main 12 volt, but that's not the same as external DC in. That's a different kind of 12 volts. So I need to find a solution to this horrible, strange pinout DIN socket. I have this 7-pin DIN here, and the bottom 2 pins on that may or may not line up with the bottom 2 pins on the Sony connector. I think they could be close enough, but have to make an awful mess of this, ripping all the pins out, to leave just the bottom 2 pins, and just maybe I could get the other ground pin in, the other supply pin. So do I mash this up? Maybe. I've mashed up that plug, but it doesn't look right still because the pin spacing looks too even compared to the socket, but let's just see if it fits. Oh, maybe. Oh yeah, that'll do. Okay, I have now completed that connection. My intention will be to run this off a 12 volt power supply. You can get generic ones which are used for various things such as LED lighting. The really high power ones of those tend to give out a clean signal. The low power ones are a bit noisy, I've found. So I'm going to connect it to my lab power supply here, my bench power supply, which I'll set just over 12 volts and decent current limit because it's going to draw some current. And then back with our multi-way connector there. I will mark this up so it can't be plugged in back to front, or would be hard to plug in back to front. But it wouldn't, I don't think it would do any great damage, but let's not have any accidents. So pin 1's at the top there, that way round. So now we don't even need that anymore. Okay, let's see if we get a bit of Iron Maiden. Oh, it's shut down. I think it's drawing more current than my lab supply's configured to do. Yeah, my bench supply is, this particular one is good for 2 amps. And I think it's tripping over that. Oh, there, we got it in, we caught it in. Right, but it kept on tripping out the power supply. But we have picture and sound, that's working fine. So I think I'll use something like a 4 amp, at least a 4 amp 12 volt power supply for this purpose, with a suitable socket on the end of that wire. It's struggling to eject as well, so it really needs a lot more current than my bench supply can do. Good. So that's worked out reasonably well. We've found out how we can make up a connector for both the AV out and DC in that means we can get away with not having to use these tuner timer units, which seem to be unreliable. Hope you've enjoyed what we've done here. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.